They laughed while you were struggling. Funny how quiet it gets when the bill comes due. Let that sink in, because this moment was never about holidays, decorations, or fake cheer. This moment is about timing. It's about the universe lining everything up so precisely that the same people who wanted front row seats to your downfall are now stuck watching something far worse for them. Your rise, their loss, no escape button. Think of it like this. They spent months stacking dominoes, confident they were building a trap for you. Every rumor, every doubt, every silent wish for your failure was another piece they carefully placed. What they didn't realize is that they were building the exact chain reaction that would knock them flat. When the first domino falls, it doesn't ask who deserves mercy. It just does what it was designed to do. Here's the fact that hits hardest. Studies in behavioral psychology show that people who obsess over someone else's failure usually do it because they feel threatened by potential, not results. They sensed something in you before you ever showed it. They knew, long before you did, that if you ever stood fully in your power, it would be game over for their sense of control. That fear made them reckless. That recklessness is why this moment exists. Another uncomfortable truth. The universe has a strange habit of balancing the scales at the exact moment people feel safest doing harm. Patterns repeat, energy circles back, and consequences don't rush. They wait. That's why this feels sudden to them and overdue to you. From their side, it looks like bad luck. From yours, it feels like confirmation. And thank you, chosen one. Seriously, if this message is hitting you right where it's supposed to, pay it back by pressing like and subscribe. Not for numbers, not for ego, but because spreading this message matters. Awareness spreads faster than lies when enough people carry it. You're not just listening, you're part of a force that shifts the balance. Thank you for being part of that mission. Now, back to the truth they can't run from. This season isn't gentle, it isn't sentimental, it's surgical. While they thought December would be another quiet month where nothing changed, the universe was closing files, highlighting patterns, and preparing receipts. This isn't random luck. It's accumulation. Everything they sent out with confidence is coming back with interest. They assumed you were fragile because you stayed silent. They mistook restraint for weakness and patience for fear. That was their biggest miscalculation. Silence isn't absence, it's preparation. While they were busy watching you, measuring you, doubting you, you were evolving in ways they couldn't track. This is why the title matters. It's game over for everyone who wanted to witness your downfall, not because you attacked them, not because you plotted revenge, but because the universe doesn't reward spectators who root for destruction. It removes them from the board. Notice how the people who wanted to see you fail are suddenly uncomfortable. Conversations feel tense. Energy shifts when you walk in. They don't say much anymore, but their silence is loud. That's not guilt, that's realization. They're doing the math and realizing it doesn't end in their favor. Here's something most people never talk about. When someone spends too long wishing against another person, their own growth freezes. While you were forced to adapt, they stayed the same. While you learned resilience, they practiced bitterness. Now the gap is too wide to hide. That's why they feel exposed. That's why this feels like justice. This isn't about celebrating their pain. It's about acknowledging reality. Every attempt to block you became leverage. Every delay became discipline. Every betrayal became clarity. You didn't just survive. You learned the rules of the game while they were still playing checkers. Christmas justice isn't magic. It's timing meeting truth. It's the universe saying enough. enough waiting, enough imbalance, enough pretending that intentions don't matter. This is the season where outcomes speak louder than explanations. And no, this doesn't mean everyone who doubted you will apologize. Some won't. Some will pretend they supported you all along. Some will quietly disappear. That's fine. Justice doesn't need witnesses. It just needs alignment. You're here because something in you endured when it was easier to quit. You're here because you didn't become cruel just because others were. You're here because the universe doesn't elevate noise. It elevates consistency. And now the scoreboard is visible to everyone. This is only the beginning of the shift. What happens next isn't about proving anything. It's about moving forward while the past collapses behind you. Let them process. Let them panic. Let them sit with the realization that they bet against the wrong person. Chosen one, this season didn't choose you by accident. It responded to you. And for everyone who wanted to witness your downfall, the verdict is final. Game over. And before we go any further, pause for a second, chosen one. The fact that you're still here is not random. People who are meant to lose interest usually do it early. The ones who stay feel a pull they can't explain, like something important is about to click. If this message feels uncomfortably accurate, that's your signal. Acknowledge it. Drop a comment with 777 to mark that you're still standing, still watching, still refusing to fold while others hoped you would. That small action tells the universe you're present, aware, and ready for what unfolds next. If you feel it in your chest right now, consider supporting the work behind this message. Not out of obligation, not for praise, but because truth doesn't travel far without momentum. Every bit of support, no matter the size, keeps messages like this alive and reaching the people who need them most. This isn't about money. It's about energy moving in the right direction. Now here's the transition you need to hear. What comes next isn't surface-level motivation. We're about to break this down step by step, calmly, clearly, and without mercy for illusions. If you're truly one of the chosen ones, you'll feel the urge to stay until the very end, because walking away now would mean missing the exact part meant for you. Now, let's get into it. Number 1. No escape. No mercy. The bill is due. They didn't just bet against you, they signed their name on the loss. This is the moment they never planned for, the moment they laughed about, dismissed, and secretly believed would never arrive. For a long time, they felt safe rooting for your collapse, safe whispering behind your back. Safe celebrating every delay, every setback, every quiet struggle you endured. What they didn't understand is that the universe keeps records, not emotions. And once a pattern crosses a certain line, there is no pause button. This isn't anger. This is enforcement. Think of it like gravity. You can ignore it, you can joke about it, you can pretend it doesn't apply to you. But the moment you step off the edge, gravity doesn't negotiate, it doesn't explain, it doesn't show mercy. It just does what it has always done. That's where they are now, mid-fall, still confused, still thinking there's a way out. Here's the part that should feel validating to you, chosen one. The universe didn't snap overnight. It tolerated more than it should have. It watched intentions stack up. It watched manipulation repeat. It watched the same people smile in your face while hoping you'd break in private. And when the scale tipped, it tipped hard. That's why this feels final. That's why it feels irreversible. Because it is. They thought silence meant weakness. They assumed your restraint was fear. That misread cost them everything. Silence was never surrender. It was accumulation. While they were busy plotting outcomes, you were becoming someone outcomes couldn't stop. That's the difference they noticed too late. Ask yourself this question, because they're asking it now. Why did everything start slipping at once? Why did their plans suddenly stall? Why did the ground feel unstable right when they felt most confident? That's not bad luck. That's consequence catching up without warning. Another uncomfortable truth for them. People who invest energy into someone else's downfall unknowingly tie their own future to that person. When you rise, they don't just feel left behind. They feel exposed. Their identity was built on seeing you beneath them. Now that structure has collapsed. This is why there's no mercy phase. Mercy already happened. Time was mercy. Warnings were mercy. Opportunities to stop were mercy. They ignored all of it because they believed they were untouchable. The universe has a habit of humbling that exact belief. Picture someone pulling a chair out from under another person repeatedly, laughing every time they fall. Eventually, they stop looking down and forget the floor exists. Then one day, they trip themselves hard. No one rushes to help because everyone remembers who taught the lesson. That's Christmas justice, not revenge, not cruelty, balance restored with precision. You might be wondering why this feels heavier than usual, why the shift feels undeniable. It's because this reckoning isn't loud at first. It's quiet panic, awkward silences, forced smiles, people watching you closely without knowing what they're looking for. They sense the change, but they don't have language for it yet. They're realizing something terrifying. You didn't need to fight them. You didn't need to expose them. You didn't need to explain yourself. Their own actions built the trap, and now the door is locked from the inside. Here's the part meant to strengthen you. The universe doesn't reward spectators who cheer for destruction. It removes them. That's why doors are closing for them and opening for you at the same time. Energy doesn't multitask. It reallocates. Notice how your clarity increased while their confusion grew. Notice how your patience paid off while their shortcuts collapsed. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. They're asking questions now they should have asked earlier. Why didn't they stop? Why didn't they choose peace? Why does it feel like everything turned against them at once? The answer is simple and brutal. They aimed at the wrong target. You were never meant to fall. You were meant to reveal who had no foundation. This reckoning has no escape route because it's internal as much as it's external. Even if they run, even if they pretend, even if they smile through it, they know. And knowing is punishment enough. Watching you stand untouched by what was meant to destroy you is a daily reminder of their miscalculation. Let this motivate you, not harden you. You don't need to gloat. You don't need to explain. Your existence moving forward is the statement. Every calm step you take forward reinforces the truth they can't deny. The game isn't paused, it's finished for them. The board has been cleared. And for you, chosen one, this is just the beginning of what happens when the universe decides enough is enough. Number 2. The masks slipped. The pretenders are naked now. They didn't lose power. They lost the illusion that gave it to them. For a long time they survived on performance, smiles that didn't reach the eyes, support that vanished the moment you turned away, loyalty that existed only when it benefited them. They mastered the art of looking aligned while secretly rooting for your collapse. And for a while, it worked. Not because they were strong, but because pretending is easy when no one is checking receipts. But seasons change, and this one doesn't reward actors. Imagine someone standing under a spotlight they didn't earn, borrowing heat from a fire that was never theirs. It feels warm. It looks impressive. They start believing the glow belongs to them. Then the source moves. Suddenly, the cold hits. Hard. That's exactly what's happening now. Without your energy feeding their image, they don't just dim, they disappear. Here's the truth they never wanted to face. Authenticity has weight. It holds under pressure. Fraud collapses the moment it's tested. That's why everything they built starts cracking all at once. They weren't exposed by enemies. They were exposed by reality. They copied your rhythm, but never learned the song. Think back. Didn't you feel it? That strange imbalance where someone close to you felt off. Like their encouragement sounded rehearsed, like their presence felt conditional. That wasn't paranoia, that was intuition catching patterns before your logic caught up. Pretenders always leak signals, they just hope you ignore them. This season doesn't allow that anymore. Imagine wearing a borrowed uniform into a battlefield. From a distance, it looks real. Up close, the seams rip, the fabric tears. And suddenly everyone sees what you've been hiding. That's what truth does. It doesn't shout. It applies pressure and waits. They mistook proximity to greatness for possession of it. This is the part where chosen ones usually ask a quiet question. Why did it take so long? Why now? Why not earlier? Because exposure too early would have taught them nothing. They would have blamed luck, timing, or someone else. Now, there's no excuse left. The fall is clean, undeniable, personal. They relied on your patience as cover. They assumed your silence meant ignorance. They believed you wouldn't notice the way they mirrored your words, borrowed your ideas, or leaned on your credibility. What they didn't realize is that silence isn't blindness. It's observation. Imagine a mirror that thinks it's a window. It reflects light perfectly, but has no depth of its own. The moment the light source moves, it shows nothing. That's the pretender's problem. They never developed substance. They depended on reflection. Borrowed power always comes with a return date. Now the return date has arrived. Notice how their confidence looks forced now. Notice how they over-explain, over-post, overreact. That's panic dressed as control. When masks slip, insecurity screams. They're scrambling to preserve an image that no longer matches reality. And here's what hurts them the most. You didn't have to call them out. You didn't expose them publicly. You didn't drag their name through anything. Truth did the work for you. Their inconsistencies spoke louder than any accusation ever could. Imagine trying to build a house on sand while mocking someone laying bricks on stone. From afar, the house looks impressive. Then the tide comes in. One wave doesn't destroy it. The second weakens it. The third erases it completely. That's not cruelty. That's physics. This is why influence drains from them so fast. It was never real influence. It was borrowed credibility. Once the source pulled back, the structure collapsed. They weren't betrayed. They were revealed. This section matters because chosen ones often struggle with guilt at this stage. You might be wondering if you're wrong for feeling relief. You're not. Relief isn't malice. It's clarity. You're not celebrating their fall. You're acknowledging the end of deception. The universe doesn't punish masks. It removes the stage. Watch how quickly people distance themselves now, not because they suddenly became moral, but because no one wants to be standing next to someone when the illusion shatters. Pretenders always fall alone. That's the cost of building nothing real. Imagine a balloon inflated with borrowed air. Big, shiny, impressive. One sharp moment of truth, and it doesn't slowly deflate. It pops, loud, final, gone. That's why this feels sudden to them. They thought they had time. They thought appearances would protect them. Appearances expire. You can fake alignment, but you can't fake substance forever. Here's the motivation for you, chosen one. This wasn't about you losing trust in people. It was about learning discernment. You now see energy before words, consistency before charm, actions before promises. That awareness is power. Their masks falling isn't a loss for you, it's confirmation. Confirmation that your instincts were right. Confirmation that your restraint saved you. Confirmation that you don't need to borrow anything from anyone to stand tall. This section closes one chapter, the chapter where pretenders shared space with you by proximity alone. That access is gone now, not because you pushed them out, but because truth made the room too bright for them to hide. And the most brutal part for them, they have to watch you continue forward without needing them at all. Masks off, roles finished, performance over. The universe doesn't clap for actors forever. Eventually it turns the lights on. Number 3. The table didn't turn. It slammed back. They threw stones from the dark, then panicked when the lights came on. For a long time, they felt untouchable because they never acted openly. Side comments, quiet interference, subtle blocks. They believed staying indirect meant staying clean. That illusion just collapsed. The universe doesn't need public chaos to keep score. It tracks patterns, not performances. Every move they made while hiding their hands still counted. Every quiet hit still landed on their own future. This is where chosen ones usually ask the same question. Why does everything feel like it's shifting all at once? Because tables don't rotate slowly when balance snaps. They flip, hard, no warning, no soft landing. Imagine stacking weight on one side of a table for months. Nothing happens at first. It looks stable. Then one more ounce tips the center of gravity and everything crashes in a second. That's not randomness. That's physics catching up. That's what's happening now. You didn't push the table. You stepped back and let reality do it. They expected you to chase revenge, to react emotionally, to expose yourself by fighting back. That's what they planned for. That's what would have kept you stuck in their frame. Instead, you did the one thing that dismantles manipulators completely. You kept rising. While they were watching you, measuring you, hoping you'd stumble, you were quietly reclaiming ground. Energy returns faster when it's no longer leaking into pointless battles. That's why what was drained feels restored now. That's why momentum suddenly feels real. Another question they're asking but won't say out loud. Why does it feel like everything they delayed is speeding up for you now? Because delay was never denial. It was compression. Pressure builds quietly until release becomes unstoppable. Imagine holding a slingshot pulled back for too long. The release doesn't crawl forward, it snaps. Distance covered in a second that would have taken years otherwise. That's acceleration, that's precision. Justice didn't arrive late, it arrived finished. This part matters. Justice isn't chaos, it's order returning. That's why it feels clean, calculated, surgical. Doors closing for them while opening for you isn't cruelty, it's correction. They assumed consequences needed your involvement. They were wrong. The universe doesn't outsource balance, it enforces it. Notice how things are resolving without you forcing anything. Conversations you never started, truths you never shouted, outcomes you never chased. That's the precision. No wasted motion, no emotional mess. You're not imagining this shift. You earned it by not becoming what tried to break you. The table didn't turn because you demanded justice. It turned because the weight was never evenly placed. Now it is, and from here on, every step you take forward reminds them of the moment they lost control of the game they thought they were running. Number 4. They were never afraid of losing you. They were afraid of you becoming you. They didn't try to stop your fall. They tried to delay your rise. This is the part they'll never admit out loud. They saw you coming long before you saw yourself. Even when you were unsure, tired, doubting your own direction, they felt it. Potential is loud to insecure people. It doesn't need proof. It doesn't need results. It just needs presence. That's why they nudged you toward smaller versions of yourself, not to help you, to contain you. Ask yourself something honestly. Why did support disappear the moment you started growing? Why did encouragement turn into silence, jokes, or distance when you began leveling up? That wasn't coincidence. That was fear dressed as indifference. People don't try to shrink what doesn't threaten them. Imagine someone standing next to a measuring wall, quietly scratching marks above their own head while erasing yours when you weren't looking. They weren't competing with you directly. They were competing with what you would become if left uninterrupted. That's why the interference was subtle. That's why it came disguised as concern, advice, or realism. They told themselves you'd burn out, that you'd fold, that pressure would crush you, that betrayal would break you, that disappointment would slow you down. They needed that story to be true, because if it wasn't, then everything they built on staying ahead of you would collapse. And here's the part that hurts them the most. You didn't break, you adapted. Pressure didn't destroy you, it upgraded you. Every setback forced you to sharpen, every betrayal stripped illusions, every lonely stretch taught you self-reliance. While they expected damage, you were building armor, not bitterness, structure, awareness, strength that doesn't announce itself. Imagine fire meant to burn something down, only to temper steel instead. The heat didn't ruin the metal, it refined it. Now it holds shape under stress. That's you. This season, your progress can't be hidden anymore. It shows in how you move, how you speak, how you no longer chase validation. That quiet confidence is loud to people who hoped you'd stay small. They feared you're becoming more than they feared you're leaving. That's why your joy feels different now. It's not performative, it's grounded. It doesn't ask permission. It exists whether they acknowledge it or not, and that terrifies them because relevance can't be forced once it's lost. You didn't rise to prove anything. You rose because you survived what was designed to erase you. And now that rise isn't temporary, it's permanent. Not because you won, but because you changed. They felt it before you did, and now they have to live with the confirmation they tried to prevent. Your rise was always the ending they feared most. Number 5, they built their own prison and called it power. The downfall didn't chase them. It waited for them to stop pretending. Most people expect consequences to arrive like a storm, loud, sudden, impossible to ignore. That's not how real justice works. Real consequences seep in quietly. They weaken the structure first. Confidence cracks. Influence thins out. Control slips in small, humiliating ways. By the time they notice, the damage is already structural. That's the phase they're in now. Status doesn't vanish overnight, it erodes. The respect they once borrowed starts feeling hollow. Rooms feel colder, conversations shorten, invitations stop coming, no one announces the fall. People just stop circling around them, and nothing terrifies someone more than realizing their presence no longer pulls gravity. Power isn't taken, it expires. They're living inside the results of their own choices, and that's the part they can't escape. There's no villain to blame, no enemy to point at, no mask left that actually works. Pretending requires an audience, and theirs has quietly walked away. Imagine building your entire identity on being above someone else. Their struggle became your reassurance. Their delays made you feel ahead. Now imagine that person rising calmly while you're standing still. That's not jealousy, that's collapse. They wake up every day forced to confront what they tried to ignore, the shortcuts they justified, the lines they crossed, the moments they convinced themselves didn't matter. Consequences don't argue, they don't explain, they just exist. Nothing is heavier than an outcome you can't outrun. Here's what turns this into punishment. You didn't disappear, you didn't break, you didn't fade quietly the way they expected. You kept going, and every step forward you take forces them to sit with the contrast. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Imagine standing in a room with mirrors on every wall, each one reflecting the same truth from a different angle. No escape, no blind spot. That's what watching you thrive feels like for them. It's not envy, it's recognition. This isn't loss. Loss suggests something unfair happened. This is exposure, pure and complete. The universe didn't humiliate them publicly. It let them experience the weight of who they became when no one was watching. And the most brutal part? You didn't have to do anything. They're not falling anymore. They've landed, and now they have to live there. Number 6. You're not breaking limits anymore. You erased them. They tried to slow you down, not knowing resistance was your training ground. Nothing you went through was wasted, not the delays, not the blocks, not the moments where it felt like every path closed at once. Each obstacle wasn't there to stop you, it was there to rewire you. While others panic at resistance, you learned how to read it, how to use it, how to turn pressure into direction. That's why this phase feels different. Every time they blocked a door, you learned how to build leverage. Every time they set a trap, you learned how to move higher instead of forward. Every time they underestimated you, they handed you space to grow without being watched. Limits only exist for people who stop negotiating with reality. Imagine someone tying weights to your ankles, thinking it would slow you down, not realizing you were training underwater. When the weights came off, you didn't walk faster. You moved like gravity forgot your name. That's what this rise looks like. Sudden to them, inevitable to you. You were never designed to fit inside their expectations. That's why containment failed. They mistook structure for control and patience for permission. While they tried to manage outcomes, you were mastering momentum. This is the point where chosen ones usually ask a dangerous question. Why do I feel calm instead of excited? Because excitement belongs to people approaching power. Calm belongs to people operating inside it. You don't announce strength once you're standing in it. Your rise isn't loud because it doesn't need approval. It's decisive, clean, directed. You're no longer testing yourself. You already know what breaks and what holds. That certainty scares people who survive on chaos. Imagine a wildfire that no longer spreads randomly, but moves with intention, consuming only what's in its path and leaving everything else untouched. That's you now. Controlled force, no wasted motion. They thought expansion required permission. They thought growth needed validation. They were wrong. Expansion responds to alignment, not approval. The moment you stopped trying to be understood, acceleration started. This rise has no ceiling because it's not built on reaction, it's built on awareness. You don't chase power anymore, you apply it quietly, precisely, without hesitation. And the most unsettling part for anyone watching, you're just getting started and it already feels unstoppable. Number 7. You didn't steal the throne, you outlasted everyone who blocked it. They didn't try to stop you because you were weak. They tried to delay you because they knew you'd lead. This truth makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who stood in your way. Leadership was always written into you, even when you doubted it, even when you tried to shrink yourself to survive. They felt it early, before results, before proof. That's why the resistance showed up as hesitation, mixed signals, slowdowns, and planted doubt. Delay was their only weapon, and it almost worked. Almost. They hoped you'd get tired of waiting, that you'd start asking for permission, that you'd second-guess your instincts long enough for them to stay relevant. But here's what they never accounted for. Pressure doesn't just break people. Sometimes it clarifies them. You don't rise to the throne by force. You rise by being impossible to replace. Look at the path behind you. Every block became a lesson. Every rejection sharpened your judgment. Every closed door taught you how to build leverage instead of begging access. The throne you're stepping into wasn't handed down. It was assembled from every obstacle meant to stop you. Imagine a crown forged from resistance instead of gold. Heavy, solid, impossible to fake. Anyone can sit in a chair. Not everyone can carry the weight that comes with it. That's why most people try to control leaders instead of becoming one. They denied you support, hoping you'd retreat. You used the isolation to build authority. They withheld validation, hoping you'd fold. You learned to validate yourself. That's how standards are born. You stopped asking if you belonged, and everything rearranged. This is the moment chosen ones often hesitate. Do I really step fully into this? Do I own it without apology? Yes, because leadership doesn't announce itself. It operates quietly, consistently, without permission. You're no longer reacting to their opinions. You're setting the tone. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're choosing direction. And that shift is irreversible. They can't deny you anymore because denial requires leverage. They lost that the moment you stopped needing them. You didn't take what was withheld. You claimed what was inevitable. The throne was never empty. It was waiting for someone who could survive the path to it. Number 8. They tried to end the story. You turned it into a legacy. They thought they were writing your ending. Turns out they were carving your name deeper. This was never just about getting through it. Survival was the bare minimum. What they never understood is that you weren't built to simply make it out alive. You were built to leave something behind that couldn't be undone, rewritten, or erased. That's why none of their tactics worked. Lies collapse when they outlive their usefulness. Schemes rot once the goal disappears. Betrayal loses power the moment the target evolves. This wasn't a storm you barely escaped. This was pressure-shaping permanence. Imagine someone trying to erase words carved into stone using rain. They keep waiting for time to wash it away, not realizing the weather only makes the carving more visible. That's what happened here. Everything they tried to use against you sharpened the outline of who you are. What survives attack becomes record. They thought exposure would weaken you. It documented you. They thought isolation would shrink you. It refined you. They thought time was on their side. Time chose you. Here's the part they can't accept. Legacy isn't built by applause. It's built by resistance. The universe doesn't seal legacies with comfort. It seals them with endurance. That's why this moment feels final. Not dramatic. Final. Imagine trying to burn a map only to realize the fire illuminated every path instead. That's what their sabotage did. It showed you exactly where you stand and exactly where you're going. No confusion left, no loose ends. They didn't fail because they lacked effort. They failed because they fought the wrong force. This Christmas justice isn't loud revenge, it's closure. Their chapter doesn't end with chaos, it ends with irrelevance, quiet, complete, no sequel. And yours? Yours expands forward because it's no longer reactive. You're not moving to prove anything, you're moving because momentum is yours now. What they tried to erase is permanent. What they tried to destroy is evidence. What they tried to control is now untouchable. Imagine a door sealing behind you, not trapping you, but locking out everything that no longer belongs. That's this moment, not an ending, a boundary. You didn't outlast them by chance, you outgrew them by design. This is how legacy forms, not in noise, but in finality, not in revenge, but in direction. The universe didn't just balance the scales, it stamped the record. Their chapter is closed. Yours doesn't end here. It moves forward, heavier, sharper, and impossible to undo. Number 9. Silence did what arguments never could. The loudest confirmation isn't a response, it's the absence of one. This is the phase people never expect. After everything flips, after justice lands, after the dust settles, there's no dramatic confrontation waiting, no final argument, no long explanations, just silence, clean, undeniable, heavy. The kind of silence that only shows up when there's nothing left to defend and no position left to hold. That's how you know it's over. For a long time, there was noise around you, opinions, criticism, doubt disguised as concern, side comments meant to keep you second-guessing yourself. And now, nothing. Not because they suddenly became peaceful, but because resistance requires leverage. They lost it. Silence isn't avoidance. It's surrender without words. Notice how their opinions no longer reach you, not because you're blocking them, but because they've stopped landing. There's a difference. What once felt loud now feels distant. What once demanded energy now feels irrelevant. That's not emotional numbness, that's dominance settling in. Imagine a battlefield after the last shot has been fired. No cheering, no speeches, just quiet confirmation that there's no fight left to continue. That's the energy now. The absence of resistance isn't confusion. It's proof. This is where chosen ones often wonder if they should say something, explain themselves, clear the air. They don't need to. Silence has already delivered the message more clearly than words ever could. When people stop arguing, it's because they ran out of ground to stand on. The universe uses silence as punctuation. It marks the end of a cycle. It closes chapters without ceremony. That's why this calm feels different from relief. It feels final. They don't reach out anymore because there's nothing left to manipulate, no reaction to harvest, no access to exploit. Silence protects momentum better than confrontation ever could. You're not ignoring them. You've moved beyond the range where their signal carries. This is emotional authority, calm without apology, distance without resentment, closure without conversation. And that silence, that's the final verdict. Number 10. You left without stains. They're still carrying the weight. You didn't escape because you fought harder. You escaped because you didn't absorb the damage. This is the contrast that settles in quietly but hits the hardest. You walked away clean, not untouched, but uncorrupted. You didn't let bitterness set up camp inside you. You didn't drag their behavior forward into your future. You processed it, learned from it, and kept moving. That's why you feel lighter now. They didn't get that option. While you released what happened, they held on to it. Every shortcut, every manipulation, every choice made in bad faith added weight they still carry. That's why they feel heavy. That's why their energy feels dense and slow. They didn't lose because you beat them. They lost because they became the kind of people who have to live with themselves. You don't win by destroying others. You win by staying intact. Chosen ones often pause here and wonder why the relief feels almost unsettling. Why does it feel calm instead of triumphant? Because peace doesn't shout. It settles. You're not replaying conversations anymore. You're not rehearsing arguments you never had. That mental noise is gone. And when the noise leaves, clarity takes its place. Imagine walking out of a storm and realizing your clothes are dry. You expected damage. You expected exhaustion. Instead, you're breathing easier. That's because you didn't internalize the chaos. You passed through it without letting it define you. They did the opposite. They tried to hand you their mess. You refused to carry it. They're stuck with unanswered questions, unresolved guilt, and the quiet awareness that their actions led them here. That weight doesn't disappear when you walk away. It compounds. Meanwhile, you move forward with nothing dragging behind you. This is why your progress feels smooth now. Not easy, but unburdened. You're not leaking energy into resentment. You're not anchored to the past. You're free to build without debris in the foundation. You didn't walk away because you lost interest. You walked away because you won something better than validation. You kept yourself whole, and that's why they didn't. Number 11. The door didn't close. It sealed. You didn't lose access. You outgrew the room. This isn't anger. This isn't resentment. This is finality done right. The door behind you isn't closed because you slammed it. It's locked because reopening it would cost you momentum you can't afford to lose. The universe doesn't block paths out of spite. It blocks them to protect direction. There are no revisits here, no curiosity check-ins, no late-night nostalgia dressed up as reflection. That phase is done, not because it hurt too much, but because it no longer fits who you are. Chosen ones often ask the same quiet question at this point. Why does going back feel impossible even when I try to imagine it? Because growth changes clearance. You can't fit back into spaces that required you to shrink. Some doors don't reopen because the person who walked through them doesn't exist anymore. Think of it like upgrading your operating system. Old files don't load the same. Old programs crash. It's not personal, it's compatibility. What once felt familiar now feels heavy, slow, misaligned. That's how you know the separation is permanent. The universe locks doors when lingering would dilute progress. Not everything that was once meaningful deserves access forever. Some chapters are complete the moment the lesson is learned, and you learned it fully. Imagine trying to walk forward while constantly glancing backward. You don't move faster, you stumble. That's why nostalgia gets cut off at this stage. Not because memories are bad, but because they no longer belong in the decision-making process. You're not being protected from them. You're being protected from regression. This is why there's no urge to explain yourself anymore, no need to justify the distance, no appetite for closure conversations. Closure already happened internally. The rest would just be noise. The lock is quiet. No dramatic sound, no announcement, just a clear internal knowing that there's nothing left behind you worth retrieving. This is not loss. This is boundary at its highest level. You're not walking away to escape. You're walking forward because the path behind you no longer exists, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Number 12. This is how survivors become legends, quietly. Legends aren't made by winning battles. They're made by outlasting eras. This is what it looks like after justice has done its work. Not celebration, not revenge, not noise, just clarity. You're standing here not because you were spared difficulty, but because you absorbed it without letting it rot you from the inside. That's the difference between someone who survives and someone who becomes permanent. Being a chosen one after justice doesn't mean you walk around hardened or bitter. It means you move with awareness. You've seen how things break. You've seen what manipulation costs. You've seen how truth always circles back. That knowledge settles into you, not as fear, but as calm authority. Experience didn't make you loud. It made you exact. This story doesn't define you because of the pain in it. It defines you because of what you refuse to become while moving through it. You didn't turn cruel. You didn't turn small. You didn't turn reactive. You learned when to stand still and when to move forward. That's legacy behavior. Imagine a tree that survived storms so intense they reshaped its roots. It doesn't brag about the weather. It just stands taller, deeper, harder to move. That's what you've become. Grounded, not flashy, unmovable. This is also where the focus fully shifts. The next chapter isn't about them at all. Not their regret, not their collapse, not their opinion. They don't get a role in what comes next because your future doesn't require a villain to function. Legacy begins the moment your life stops reacting. You don't carry the story like a wound anymore. You carry it like a credential, quiet proof that you've been tested at levels most people never reach. And you passed without losing yourself. This is how the universe marks people who endure correctly, not with applause, with forward motion that doesn't stall. You're not chasing closure, you're building continuity. This is what survivors turned legends look like. Calm, clear, moving forward while the past stays exactly where it belongs. Number 13. The story doesn't end here. It moves without you looking back. There's a quiet moment after everything settles, after justice has done what it needed to do, after the doors have sealed and the noise has died. This moment isn't dramatic. It's steady, grounded. This is where you realize something important. You're not waiting anymore, not for validation, not for closure, not for anyone to finally understand what you went through. Understanding is no longer required. What happened to you didn't turn into a scar you keep reopening. It turned into structure. It shaped how you move, how you choose, how you protect your time and energy. You don't flinch at resistance now. You read it. You don't chase certainty. You create it. That's not confidence borrowed from success. That's certainty earned through survival. The past stopped pulling when you stopped carrying it. This is the part people on the outside never see. They think strength looks loud. They think winning looks like celebration. They don't understand that the real shift happens when you stop narrating your life and start living it. Quiet progress, clean decisions, no emotional debris left behind. You're not hardened, you're precise. Imagine walking forward without checking who's watching, without measuring reactions, without needing witnesses. That's freedom most people never touch because they're still negotiating with old versions of themselves. You're not. The universe didn't give you justice so you could look backward longer. It gave it to you so you could move forward uninterrupted. That's why nothing pulls you back anymore. No curiosity, no nostalgia, no unfinished business. Everything that needed to happen already did. Some endings don't ask for acceptance, they enforce it. This is where momentum becomes permanent. Not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer divided internally. You don't waste energy explaining. You don't leak power proving. You don't second-guess your intuition. You trust it because it's been tested. What comes next doesn't need an audience. It needs consistency. You're carrying something now that can't be taken. Perspective, discernment, calm authority, the kind that doesn't rush and doesn't hesitate. You're not chasing a future to escape the past. You're building one because it finally makes sense. And here's the final truth that ties everything together. Justice didn't elevate you, it cleared the path. What you do next is entirely yours. The chapter that closes here did its job. It showed you who you are under pressure. It showed you what survives when comfort disappears. It showed you that no matter who watched you struggle, none of them get to decide how the story continues. That part belongs to you. You move forward now without weight, without noise, without permission. Not because you're finished, but because you're ready. Number 14. The story doesn't end here. It moves without you looking back. There's a quiet moment after everything settles, after justice has done what it needed to do, after the doors have sealed and the noise has died. This moment isn't dramatic, it's steady, grounded. This is where you realize something important. You're not waiting anymore, not for validation, not for closure, not for anyone to finally understand what you went through. Understanding is no longer required. What happened to you didn't turn into a scar you keep reopening. It turned into structure. It shaped how you move, how you choose, how you protect your time and energy. You don't flinch at resistance now. You read it. You don't chase certainty. You create it. That's not confidence borrowed from success. That's certainty earned through survival. The past stopped pulling when you stopped carrying it. This is the part people on the outside never see. They think strength looks loud. They think winning looks like celebration. They don't understand that the real shift happens when you stop narrating your life and start living it. Quiet progress, clean decisions, no emotional debris left behind. You're not hardened, you're precise. Imagine walking forward without checking who's watching, without measuring reactions, without needing witnesses. That's freedom most people never touch because they're still negotiating with old versions of themselves. You're not. The universe didn't give you justice so you could look backward longer. It gave it to you so you could move forward uninterrupted. That's why nothing pulls you back anymore. No curiosity, no nostalgia, no unfinished business. Everything that needed to happen already did. Some endings don't ask for acceptance, they enforce it. This is where momentum becomes permanent, not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer divided internally. You don't waste energy explaining. You don't leak power proving. You don't second-guess your intuition. You trust it because it's been tested. What comes next doesn't need an audience. It needs consistency. You're carrying something now that can't be taken. Perspective, discernment, calm authority, the kind that doesn't rush and doesn't hesitate. You're not chasing a future to escape the past. You're building one because it finally makes sense. And here's the final truth that ties everything together. Justice didn't elevate you. It cleared the path. What you do next is entirely yours. The chapter that closes here did its job. It showed you who you are under pressure. It showed you what survives when comfort disappears. It showed you that no matter who watched you struggle, none of them get to decide how the story continues. That part belongs to you. You move forward now without weight, without noise, without permission, not because you're finished, but because you're ready.